In Part 1, Dante and Virgil descended through the outer circles of hell. Limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, and wrath. And just when they thought they had seen the worst of it, they reached the burning gates of the city of Dis, where the true horror begins. After reaching the shore, Virgil paused for a moment, his gaze fixed on the red and burning horizon. Then he turned to Dante and said in a grave tone, "Up to now you have only seen the sins of desire and impulse, but what comes next is different, deeper, darker. Here begins a more conscious kind of evil, sins committed with full awareness." "That is Dis," Virgil continued, "the infernal city. Here dwell the damned guilty of the gravest sins, those who defied reason itself and rebelled against divine law." The air grew dense, as if even oxygen feared entering that place. Dante shivered. There was no turning back now. The atmosphere changed completely as Dante and Virgil approached the city of Dis. The air became hotter, heavier, as if hell itself were breathing in fury. In the distance, the city's walls rose high and strong, surrounded by a river of fire that burned with blinding intensity. Virgil motioned for Dante to move forward, but just as they reached the gates of the city, demons emerged from the shadows. Fallen angels, their eyes full of contempt, blocked their path.
"Who are you?"
one of them shouted, his voice like an infernal roar. Virgil, unshaken, stepped forward. "I am Virgil, guide to Dante's soul. We are here to continue our journey through hell." The demons laughed cruelly.
"A living soul? Here, in the city of the damned? We will not allow it."
But then, a beam of light appeared in the sky, and a heavenly voice rang out. "Let them pass. It is Beatrice's command." The demon stepped aside in terror. Virgil nodded, satisfied, and led Dante through the gates of the city. Inside, the place was even darker. In every corner, the echoes of condemned souls rang against the iron walls. Dante watched the shadows flicker across the burning ground and felt smaller than ever. Virgil whispered to him, "We are now in the sixth circle. Here, the heretics are punished." The heretical souls lay in open tombs, burning like lamps of fire. They could not move. They could only stare with empty eyes, filled with despair. Dante asked, his throat tight with dread, "What did these sinners do?" Virgil looked at him and replied, "In life, they denied the immortality of the soul. They believed everything ended with the death of the body. And so now their souls burn forever inside tombs of fire." Dante looked sadly at a man he recognized. It was Epicurus, a philosopher of antiquity whose teachings had influenced many. But his vision of the world and of death had led him straight to this circle. Virgil explained, "This circle is for those who believed physical life was all there was. They rejected the idea of an eternal purpose. That is why their punishment is to burn, like their souls, without hope of resurrection." Dante could not take his eyes off the weeping figures, trapped forever inside their own limited vision of the world. The path descended again, growing harsher with every step. The air turned dry, as if the world had been drained of all life. Virgil turned to Dante and warned him, "We now enter the seventh circle, reserved for the violent. Not all of them stained their hands with blood, but all of them destroyed something sacred." Suddenly, the sound of boiling water surrounded him. Before them flowed a river of boiling blood, moving like lava. In it, souls writhed, submerged at different depths, some to their ankles, some to their necks, and others completely beneath the surface. These are the violent against their fellow man, Virgil explained. Murderers, tyrants, plunderers. The greater their cruelty, the deeper they must sink into the blood they spilled. Armed centaurs patrolled the banks. If any soul tried to escape, a burning arrow sent it back into torment. One of them approached. It was Chiron, the wisest of his kind. Virgil spoke with him, and the centaur agreed to escort them safely across to the other side of the river. After crossing, they entered a twisted and shadowy forest, where no birds sang and no wind could be heard. Only muffled groans filled the air. Dante moved between the dry trunks and noticed something horrifying. The branches were bleeding. "Are they alive?" he asked in horror. "These trees are the souls of the suicides," Virgil replied. "In life, they tore themselves away from existence. Now they cannot even have human bodies. They can only feel the pain of the wind breaking them, of their branches being torn away. Hideous harpies, with the faces of women and the bodies of birds, nested in their branches, shredding them with their claws." Dante tried to speak to one of the trees. The voice came from the trunk itself, rough as the crack of splintering wood. "Do you think this is not pain? At least in life I could scream. Now I can only creak." Farther on, the ground changed once more. They entered a burning desert where flames fell instead of rain. The fire came down slowly, steadily, without mercy. The souls ran, writhed, or lay face down on the scorching sand. "Here are those who were violent against God, against nature, and against art," said Virgil. "Blasphemers, sodomites, usurers. Their punishment is eternal desolation because they defied the divine order." Dante saw faces consumed by despair. One of them stared straight at him and shouted, "I do not repent. Hell is better than a life built on lies." But with every new flame that touched him, his skin split open and his cry turned into a howl. Virgil touched Dante's arm. It was time to keep descending. Virgil stopped at the edge of a vast terraced abyss, and as they looked out over the enormous expanse, vanishing into the darkness, he spoke in a solemn voice. "We have reached the 8th circle, Dante. Its name is Malebolge, which in our tongue means evil pouches." He turned toward him with a grave expression. "Here descend those who committed fraud, deliberate deception, betrayal of trust, not from impulse, but with calculation and cunning." He pointed downward, where the terrain was divided into huge concentric ditches, like trenches carved into stone. This circle is not a single place. It is made of 10 bolgias, each one dedicated to a different kind of deceit. 10 traps for 10 forms of corruption. Virgil stepped forward, and as they descended, he added, "Prepare yourself. Here you will see punishments more twisted than anywhere else, because human intelligence, once corrupted, gives birth to monsters." Virgil looked down into the descent and said, "Each of these trenches holds a different kind of deceiver. Look carefully, Dante. Every punishment reflects the sin committed." "This is the first bolgia," Virgil said. "Here march those who used sweet words and false promises to manipulate others. Seducers, pimps, corrupters of the soul. Demons lash them without mercy as they walk, because just as they drove others with deception, they are now driven by force." "This is the second bolgia," Virgil continued. "Here are the flatterers, those who used praise to gain power or favor. Now they sink into a pit of foul excrement. because their words were filth, and filth is what consumes them now. This is the third bolgia, Virgil said. Here lie those who sold sacred things, indulgences, church offices, divine favors. They are buried headfirst in stone holes, with only their legs exposed and burning like human torches. They inverted the sacred order, and now they themselves are inverted. This is the fourth bolgia, Virgil said. Do you see those condemned with their heads twisted backward? They are diviners, astrologers, and false prophets. In life, they tried to see the future, and now they walk forever, looking only behind them, with tears running down their backs. This is the fifth bolgia, Virgil said. It is filled with corrupt officials, bribers, and venal politicians. They writhe in a lake of black tar, watched over by demons who force them back down whenever they try to rise. Just as they hid their corruption behind noble words, they are now trapped beneath an opaque and burning surface. This is the sixth bolgia, Virgil said. Look at those who walk slowly, covered in golden cloaks, but inside, the cloaks are made of lead. They are the hypocrites. Their weight crushes them, just as the lie of their lives did. They gleamed on the outside, but within they were false and hollow. This is the seventh bolgia, Virgil said. Here the thieves are constantly attacked by serpents. Every bite tears them apart and forces them to transform into new creatures. They stole the identity of others, and now they cannot even keep their own. An eternal metamorphosis, a constant loss of self. This is the eighth bolgia, Virgil said. Here are those who use their intelligence to lead others into error. Politicians, strategists, wise men who manipulated through words. Now they burn inside tongues of flame, because their tongue was the instrument of their deceit. Look at that flame that splits in two. Inside it suffers Ulysses, the cunning hero who deceived so many. Virgil paused at the edge of the ninth trench. His eyes, tired from the journey, still held their firmness as he said, "We are almost at the end of Malebolge, but these last two bolgias are especially cruel. Here, treachery disguised as speech and appearance is punished." This is the ninth bolgia, Virgil said. Here are those who divided what should have remained united. Politicians who stirred up wars, religious leaders who caused schisms, families shattered by intrigue. Each of them is ripped open by a demon armed with a brutal sword. Their bodies are split apart, just as they tore entire communities apart. Then their wounds close, and they are cut open again, over and over, without rest. This is the 10th and final bolgia, Virgil said. Here are the falsifiers, alchemists, false witnesses, counterfeiters of coins, identities, and words. They are consumed by disease, leprosy, fever, madness. They groan, scream, and crawl across the ground while their flesh rots away. They contaminated the truth in life, and now their punishment is to be contaminated beyond remedy. Dante covered his nose and mouth. The stench was unbearable, and the cries were worse. Virgil touched his shoulder and said, "This circle is made of deceit. Here there are no cries of wrath, no righteous fire, only corrupted cunning, precise punishment, and a darkness deeper than flame." Virgil, his face severe, pointed ahead as they walked on. The temperature dropped sharply, and the air grew heavier with every step. Dante could feel the ice rising up to his ankles. This is the ninth circle, Dante. Here lies the deepest betrayal, the worst sin of all, to betray the trust of those who loved you or entrusted you with something precious? Virgil paused, letting Dante grasp the enormity of the place. This circle is divided into 4 zones, and each one punishes those who betrayed the most sacred bonds: family, homeland, and God himself. In the deepest of all, where those closest are betrayed, the punishment is the worst of all: eternal ice. The ice represents the freezing of the heart, a heart that became so cold it was capable of betraying the most sacred trust. There is no fire here, only absolute paralysis. The punishment fits the nature of the sin: immobility, despair, and eternal suffering. This is the first zone of the Ninth Circle, Virgil said. Here lie those who betrayed their homeland. They are buried in the ice up to their necks, their faces frozen in expressions of endless suffering. They cannot move or speak, yet they remain fully conscious of the condemnation of their own people. This is the second zone, Virgil continued. Here are those who betrayed the trust of their friends. They are sunk deeper into the ice, frozen to the chest, their tears sealed upon their faces before they can even fall. In life, they turned friendship into an opportunity for gain. Now they remain trapped beneath the full weight of that betrayal. This is the third zone, he said. Here are those who turned against their own blood. Parents who betrayed their children, children who destroyed their parents, brothers who sold one another. They are frozen up to the waist, held fast in the coldness that had already taken root in them long before death. This is the fourth and final zone, Virgil said. Here are those who betrayed God. This is the deepest and most terrible part of the Ninth Circle, where the worst of all are condemned. Lucifer, prince of traitors, is trapped in the ice up to his chest. Those who defied divine justice, those who chose sin with full awareness, are condemned to remain here without mercy, without movement, and without hope of repentance. Here, there is no redemption, only ice, an eternal punishment for those who never understood the meaning of loyalty and genuine love. Dante stared in horror at the figures imprisoned in the ice. In their eyes, he saw absolute despair, and the cold seemed to pierce even the bone. Virgil, in a grave voice, said to Dante, "This is the end of the journey, Dante. Here, in this circle, we find the worst sin, treachery, the most destructive act a human being can commit. Because in treachery, the most sacred thing is killed: trust." Virgil and Dante moved forward in silence, while the cold of the Ninth Circle seemed to freeze even time itself. Then suddenly, a faint light broke through the darkness. "Look, Dante, there it is, the end." Dante stared at the glow in disbelief. "Is it possible?" "Yes, you have reached the end of hell. But the journey does not end here. The road toward redemption still remains." As they drew closer, the ice gave way to warmth, and the burden of suffering slowly began to lift. "Up there lies Purgatory," Virgil said, "a new beginning for souls that still seek hope." Dante looked toward the light. Now he understood that hell does not only punish, it also teaches. Every circle reveals how our choices shape our destiny, because the greatest punishment is not pain, but failing to learn from it. With a lighter heart, he took a step toward the exit, leaving the shadows of the abyss behind. And so, Dante's journey through hell came to an end, a passage filled with suffering and condemnation, but also with the deepest lessons about morality, justice, and the fate of the human soul. Now the path toward Purgatory awaited him, and with it, the possibility of redemption. If this journey through the circles of hell gripped you, and you want us to continue with the ascent through Purgatory, let us know in the comments. Your voice may guide us into the next chapter of this journey.